Hey, friends, welcome to the Radical Care for Christian Counselors podcast. I'm Bethany Boring, and I'm so glad to be spending the next little bit with you. Let me tell you and let me share and see if you are in the right place. Well, first of all, I hope you are. And second of all, if you're a counselor, mental health professional, pastoral care leader, or really anyone who wants to do life well and deeper with others, maybe you're tired of doing continual one-on-one sessions with people, but you really want to go into a deeper place and maybe you've never experienced that in a group setting. Well, friends, it is possible. And that's why we are here at Step Out and Thrive. We help counselors, mental health professionals, pastoral care leaders, and really coaches who really want to go out of the one-on-one sessions but in deeper into group and communities and use that to not only transform their lives but transform and really reproduce what they're doing in the lives of others. That sounds like something that you would love to connect with. We are in the right place, and we are on the last day of our Thrive series because, like I mentioned here at the beginning, so many people know that the business is called Step Out and Thrive, but they're like, their idea of thriving is like, okay, let's go. Like, I'm stepping out and I'm thriving. And if you've been with us any time over the last couple weeks, you'll know that's not what I'm talking about when it means thrive. And so that's why we're taking this time to really go through each letter of Thrive because I have an acronym that we've made out of it. And today we're on the final and last letter, and it will blow your mind. At least it did with me, as God has been sharing this with me. And I will say this one caveat. Some people think that I just sit down and I write the stuff out. The Thrive acronym has been in my life probably for 6 or 7 years at this point. It's been something that God has slowly been pouring into me. And it wasn't until recently that He said, okay, I'm giving you permission to release it. And so it's been kind of like a running joke between me and him the last couple of years. But it just seems like now he's sensing, okay, it's time for you to share. And I'm also realizing, like I said, many people think of Thrive differently than I do. And my tagline has always been dare to do more than just survive, step out and thrive, meaning get out of survivor mindset. And thriving means you have so much more going on in your life because you are seen and heard and known by God. And you are not a member of this world, that you have a heavenly kingdom. But right here on earth, you can see and experience life differently because of your relationship with God. That's what thrive looks like. So the letters that we've talked about up to this point to catch you guys up before I share a little bit of my story and then a little bit of God's story and then challenge you the last time for your story out of this E, this last letter. I'm going to catch you back up on what we've covered up to this point. So T and thrive is almost had a brain fart there. My through. Do you guys call those brain farts? My kids call them brain farts. Is when you just have that like what's happening right now. But okay, T through. We're talking about through. We have to walk through. We have to decide that we're going to go through something. Him. Talk about God and who is God. And before I can know myself, I really have to know who God is. Receiving, which you have to receive, and what are you holding on to? What are you really holding on to so that you can actually open and receive and admit that you need to receive? Impossible. Wow, we had a great time with that. Really talking about what impossible meant and how we really need to keep our eyes off of what is going on in the earthly realm and really pay attention to what God's doing. Victories, again, kind of that same idea about victories, because if we're looking for the impossible and we're looking to God for the impossible, we're also doing the same thing for our victories. So victories are in Him and not in us. And every day, that is the E, every day. What through Him receiving impossible victories every day, Bethany? Yes, every day, every day. And it's not like everybody's going to be like, all right, today's amazing. I mean, you have hard days. I don't know about y'all, but I have hard days. So some of you guys are going, Bethany, you had me up into the E. The E is a little hard for me to swallow. And again, don't take things at surface value because most likely I'm not talking about it like that. You've been following any of these last couple weeks, you're probably like, oh, wait, she's got something else. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And here's my story to talk about every day. When I started going through my divorce, and especially through the hearing and vision on top of all of that, There was health things going on with me. There was relationship things going on with me, finances, just so many different things. And I had many days where I would just get up long enough to get the kids out the door for school, and I would find myself crawling back into bed and just having no energy to do anything. And no, it didn't happen every single day because you guys know me well enough to know that I didn't stay there. But I'm also bright enough to know that there's others of us out here who have had days like that. I've had days where it's like, it is not worth getting out of bed today. I have nothing to get out of bed for. Now imagine when my vision and hearing started changing, I really struggled to get out of bed because I didn't know what I was going to open my eyes to when I put my hearing aids in, if I'd really be able to hear, or if I was going to have this constant vertigo that day, or if I was going to have this constant ringing in my ears that now sounds like a freight train, or if I was going to deal with a huge migraine. I didn't know what each day was going to bring. And so it was actually easier if I could just shut my eyes and pretend like I was sleeping just a little bit longer. It was on this journey that a counselor and then also God started asking me these questions. What would be worth it for you to get out of bed in the morning? Well, obviously, I said my 3 kids, duh. That was important. I wanted to get up for them. But eventually, I had to go even deeper than that. Because honestly, there were days where everything I was struggling with, I'm like, you even have those thoughts like, is it worth it? Like, they could probably have somebody much better than me. Like, these thoughts would go through my head. And some of you guys are like, what? Bethany, you're a mental health coach. Yeah, guess what? I'm also real. I don't know about you, but I don't want to get help from somebody who hasn't gone through hell and back themselves. Just saying. I want that kind of person that knows what pain really feels like, then I can trust, that I can walk with. And not everybody's gone through stuff. And not everybody's gone through stuff of different magnitudes. But in my life, I love being with people that have gone through a lot of hardships. And so I was in this place where I was like, okay, God, what would it take to get me out of bed in the morning? What would it take to say, okay, I'm ready for the day ahead? What would it take for me to reach for my hearing aids and go, I don't know what I'm going to hear today. I don't know what I'm going to see today. I don't know what I'm going to lose today. But I'm willing to get up. I'm willing to go through that. Well, it started about, I'm not sure exactly when this started. I was trying to remember as I was thinking about the story today, and I don't remember when it started. But a while back, I remember waking up and it was later, and I believe my kids were with their dad for a little bit. So I got up a little later, and the dog was barking his head off at something. I'm like, what is happening? So I thought he wanted to go outside. So I got up, and I can feel the vibrations. Just go with me at this point. But I can feel the vibrations, and especially the door when he's banging on the door. So I got out. I went to go try to let him out, and he didn't want to go out. Instead, he was barking at our front door. I was like, and he doesn't go out the front door. So I was a little confused and a little caught off guard and still trying to get my bearings. And so I open the front door and I look out, and there's the stuff. There's boxes of stuff on our chair that's sitting out in the front area. And I'm like, what? Where did this come from? And it was food. And some of my kids' favorite food. It was like macaroni and cheese and like chips and granola bars and something chocolate. I don't remember what it was at the time, but it was just like, if my kids could go to Sam's Club and pick out their favorite food, there it was on the chair. And I just thought, what is happening right now? And I'm also like, what time is it? And can I eat this food before my kids get home? Um, but so I slowly brought the food back inside, and I just sat at the table, just looking at all the stuff for the longest time, and just tears coming down my eyes. Because at that moment, I felt seen. That Elroy that we talked about a couple weeks ago actually saw me. To many other people, it just would have been food on a table. But to me, this food came from who knows where, and it was here, and somebody saw me enough to like provide for my kids, to provide for me. Wow, what a surprise. Later on that day, I got a text from a friend who said subprime delivery and with a picture of the food. So I made that connection. I'm like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit more, cool that I had this friend, and this couple had pretty much adopted me and the boys a couple years back. And they do so many special things for us for Christmas. We go out for ice cream together. I mean, they are just so great with me and the boys. And so their husband Chuck would always surprise us once in a while, and he would try to sneak up and put this food by our chair and then leave. So a couple times it would happen so much that my kids would be home and they'd be like gaming and they would totally miss it. And all of a sudden they'd hear the doorbell go off or something. We have one of those ring doorbells. So they would see it go off and go, ah, and they would see him running into the car like, oh, we missed it. Other times we would come driving in after a crazy day, and there on the doorstep would be a subprime delivery, and they knew it was Chuck. They're like, Chuck! And sometimes it was so funny because this happened just the other day when he did it, which blew my mind. I was back in the bedroom, actually here where I am. This is my office. It's actually in my bedroom. Go figure. And I was back here doing a session with a group, and I had a great day actually, but I just had this lingering thing. It's just like, God, do you see me? Like I had taken several different steps of faith this past week, and I've been asking him all week, God, I just need that stand. I need the very obvious pointers that you are guiding me in this direction. Well, A, I had a great week, but B, this is what happened. I come out of that day and I'm on a high. I'm like, this was an amazing group. God was moving, chains were breaking. It was just amazing. And I make it out and I open the door, and there on the chair was food. And I'm like, how did he do that? Like, and I looked at the ring. You guys, there was nothing on the ring doorbell. I checked my text. There was no subprime delivery text. So I looked at the food and I'm thinking this has to be Chuck, but yet there was no text saying it was Chuck. And so the next half an hour, I spent myself just in this exciting. I'm like, do I text him? Do I not text him? Is it him? Is it not him? What is it? What could be happening? And I realized this joy happening inside of me. And finally, I did end up texting him. I'm like, so, question. We got this food. I think it's you. Is it you? Subprime delivery text. And then he's like, oh yeah, subprime delivery. And it was just like one of those funny, amazing moments that I realized I have people out there that are willing to dodge, or I don't know what he did to get the ring doorbell not to capture him, but to just do all these funny things, to go through the extremes to say, oh my goodness, Bethany, you and your kids, you are worth buying food for. You are worth coming for. You are worth being seen. You are worth being heard. You are worth taking risks of faith for. You are valuable. You are seen. We want you. You're wanted. I don't know if you've had moments in your life where you've walked and seen stuff by your doorstep. You know those gifts, you know your love language of what that looks like for somebody to know that you're seen and you're heard and you're cared for. That makes the days worth getting out of bed for, doesn't it? Knowing that there's people out there waiting for you, waiting for the way that God has created you to show up, not only in this world, but in their lives, because you've made so much of an impact in their life. But not only that, we get to give those gifts to other people too. It's both and. If we're waiting for people to constantly give to us, we're going to be disappointed. But when we're receiving from this God that we talked about, right? Through Him receiving these impossible victories, that's going to make me want to get up every day. And now I'm not going to be like, yay, but I'm also going to be like, ooh, what's God going to do today? It's going to be a little more of an adventure. And that's what God had to do. He had to change a lot of that for me instead of looking at everything that I was losing. And yes, there is grief associated with that. Can we admit we're not in heaven yet, y'all? We're going to have sadness. We're going to have grief. We're going to have moments of anger. We're going to have all of this here. But you can still thrive every day in that because you're not looking for the world to satisfy, that you're trusting in the God of the universe, the Savior, to save you over and over and over again, continually by His love, continue by being seen, continue because you know that you have a Father up in heaven that would do anything for you and with you. That's my story. Let's get into God's story. The God story that came to mind out of this is the widow and Elisha. If you know the story, it starts at First Kings chapter 17 and starts at verse 8 or a little bit around there. And if you let me catch you up to where we're at this point. There is a drought. Elijah is right around the prophets of Baal time, if you can remember that story, where there's a drought going on and God is about to end the drought. But right now there's a drought going on and Elijah's just exhausted. He is exhausted. And God sends him to a widow. And you're like, what? Like, God, you could send him anywhere and you decide to send him to a widow. Okay. So he's trying to live out this everyday thing. He's trying to go, okay, I'm going to keep on going another day. I'm going to keep on going another day, God. God, show me where you're at. And if you know the story of Elijah, you know he gets to that point where he's like, God, where are you? And he got to see God on display in so many amazing ways. So even Elijah had those days where he was in mourning, where he was exhausted, where he was tired. But at this point, we don't know exactly where he's at, but we know that he's hungry. Because he shows up in this town. He gets told by God that a widow's going to take care of him, and he's hungry and he's thirsty. So he stops by this well and he asks this widow, hey, can you please give me something to drink? And she's like, yeah, I'm already drawing it. Here you go. And as she dips her cup down to give him some water, he goes, oh, yeah, can you also give me a little bit of bread? And she freezes. And she's like, surely as the Lord God lives, I only have this little bit of grain left in this bowl. And I'm gathering these sticks right now. It's just like not even wood, it's sticks to make a fire so I can make bread so that me and my son can eat our last meal and die. Okay, if I was Elijah back then, I'd be like, God, are you sure? Like I'm hungry. This doesn't make sense. If you're providing, where that would just be me. I would be trying to connect the dots. I do, like, gets me in trouble a lot, but that's what I would be doing instead. And I just can't imagine. This is one of those stories I would love to see. Okay, so Elijah is sitting there. He just hears this widow going, yeah, I'm gonna get these sticks together and make this meal so me and my son can eat it and die. And his response, I hope he waited a little bit. I really do. I hope it wasn't just immediately he just said this, but his response was, you will not surely die. I want you to go and I want you to do what you said. I want you to bring me some water, and I do want you to bake that bread, but out of that bread, I want you to just make me just a little bit of it. And if you could just bring me just a little bit of it, that'd be great. Can you imagine if I was that widow? I'd be like, yeah, did you hear what I just said about dying? Like, you're trying to take our last supper. It's like, what are you doing? But there was an exchange that happened there. And I don't know if maybe she knew this with Elijah and knew that he was a prophet and knew that maybe God was doing something incredible here. There had to be that curiosity. There had to be a little bit of that, okay, God, what are you going to do? Right? Because she went from, we're going to eat and die to, okay, what? So she does. She goes back. She uses the remainder of the grain in there. She makes the bread. She gives Elijah his portion. She makes sure he has water. She makes her portion for her and her son. And it says they wake up the next day and she looks in her bowl and sure enough, there's oil and there's grain to make another loaf. Now, it doesn't say there's a huge bowl overflowing. They didn't say the oil was overflowing. It was just enough there for the next day. And Elijah's like, yeah. It's like, what? And if I was the widow, I'd be like, okay, that's cool. That's cool. That's a cool trick. Awesome. Way to go. Okay. This is awesome. So we'll eat again today. And Elijah, there's still a little bit for you so you get to have your bread. Yay. And they go to sleep again. This isn't in the Bible, but this I'm guessing maybe it happened. They go to sleep again, they wake up, and the widow was like, no way, God did it again. Like, I would be like totally surprised, just like I am when I go to the door some days and go, so Prime delivered, and I open the door, I'm like, ah! It's not an everyday thing, but it's almost getting to a joke now because when I have these really hard mornings and these really hard days, it ends up being a subprime delivery day. And I don't ask for this. I've never asked for any of this. And so it's just funny because God has his way of saying, I see you. Bethany, I see you. It's looking for him in these everydays, that excitement. That widow had that excitement. Elijah had that excitement. But again, it wasn't enough to get them through the whole next year, even the whole next week. It was just enough to get him through that day. That's why they have to keep coming and keep receiving. So, through him receiving impossible victories every day, through him receiving impossible victories every day, again, it's not about us, friends. It's not about you. Thriving is not about you doing the best you can to earn the favor of God or earn the favor of man. Thriving is instead is through him receiving impossible victories every day. Those victories may look like looking your kid in the eye and noticing that spark of life that maybe you haven't seen before. That thriving may look like walking outside and, yes, seeing a subprime delivery. That thriving may look like seeing a friend with tears coming down her eyes and you having the God given capacity to sit with that friend in the hardness because you know that she had done that for you and there's somebody had done that with you. Thriving looks differently because thriving comes from a new way of thinking, a new way of living. Part of the series, and I wanted to get through your brain, which is hard because God's been working overtime to get this through my brain. It really is going day by day with Him and receiving from Him, receiving from that relationship from Him. And the best way I know how to do thrive is just like I've been saying it, through him receiving impossible victories every day. So it's not just once a week, it's not just once a month, it's not just when the subprime delivery comes. It's every day. And it's doing that interactive appreciation. And it's doing that check-in practices. It's receiving. It's looking for God. It's that curiosity. It's that excitement. So my question for you is, what gets you out of bed in the morning, friends? Are you looking for something here on earth to fill that void that only God can? Or is there really something deeper that you're asking God to do? Maybe it's that impossible victory part. Maybe you're holding on to something so tightly that you can't even receive from Him. Maybe you just don't want to go through whatever God has you going through right now. Maybe you can't believe that He's really going to show up every single day. I don't know where you are in all of this, friend, but if you're like me and you have those troubled days when you just struggle getting out of bed, what is that would get you out of bed in the morning? I love my boys with a passion that I can't even explain. But I needed something even deeper than that to get me out of bed in the mornings. And honestly, if I didn't have this thrive mindset, if I didn't have this thrive way of doing life, I don't know if I could. Because I know it has nothing to do with me. And I know it has everything to do with God. And I wake up and go, okay, God, I am not feeling it. I'm struggling today. But I need you. I need you. And I'm receiving. And I'm looking for you. And I'm here. God, what do you have for me today? Not yesterday, not tomorrow. Today. A whole new way of living life, isn't it? I hope this has brought joy and curiosity. Again, the big thing that you're talking about this week is what is it that would help you get out of bed in the morning? And honestly, can God meet that need? If you really had to wrestle with that and ask God, God, can you really meet that need? A lot of times I struggled because honestly, to get out of bed in the morning, I'm like, I had to have things look a certain way. And God's like, what if they don't? What if they don't sound a certain way? What if they don't look a certain way? What if it doesn't go a certain way? What if your kids are just having a horrible day? What if there's no subprime delivery? What if everything just seems to go wrong? It's still worth getting out of bed because I get to do the day with God. Through Him, receiving impossible victories every day. And we don't have to do it. We just come with an open hand and an open heart and let God work. If you would like to discuss this a little bit more, like I've been saying every week, you're welcome to join the Step Out and Thrive community. We'd love to have you and discuss more. There's also tons of other links on my splash page besides the community link. You can see bethanyboring.com for more information and would love to have you. Now that you know what Thrive really looks like, well, maybe this tagline means a little bit more to you now. Let's say it together. Dare to do more than just survive. Step out and thrive. I'll say that one more time and let it linger with you and let you carry it with you throughout this next week. Friends, I invite you. Dare to do more than just survive, looking at the physical things, but instead stepping out of the boat, looking at Jesus, knowing there's so much more. Can step out through Him, receiving impossible victories every day. Step out and thrive. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.